Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Derek and Eric here. Got a two-pack of stories here. A happy reunion and new information about a very, very big story involving a huge actor.
Right. But let's start with the happy stuff first.
Let's do the happy stuff.
Start on a good note here. Shawn Mendes, Camila Cabello, apparently back together.
I didn't see it coming.
No, we thought they were done. We saw them making out, dancing together at Coachella. Everybody thought, well, it's just a Coachella hookup.
Yeah.
We had a big debate in the newsroom about it. And no, this is just a one-off. They saw each other. They were always friendly even when they broke up. There was no big drama that we know of.
I had to learn about the free love that's available at Coachella because I've never been to Coachella and I haven't been to really many music festivals. I go to a Garden Box at the Hollywood Bowl every now and then, but there's not much making out that goes on there. But apparently,
because the oxygen tanks get in the way of the artists that you see. But
that's right. But Coachella to the kids is a place where you just kind of hook up with people who are available. Everyone is a lot of people doing lots of drugs and drinking, so it's not necessarily where you take a serious relationship. But
it's just a
I remember
good time.
Charlie Cotton used to fall in love all the time when he used to go to Coachella.
And Shawn and Camila have this history, so they get together, hooked up a little bit. But now we've seen them out days after Coachella, strolling hand in hand in Santa Monica. They're together.
We're back in the real world now.
Right.
The fog of the Coachella glaze on your life is gone, and now you're sobered up and still holding hands. I think it's a huge sign. Now, it's a very short video. It's just them sort of like walking down a sidewalk, but it has this sort of intimacy of a relationship. They look very comfortable. They're holding hands. It doesn't look like a friendly holding hand. You're holding an arm as you lead someone. They're holding hands like a couple.
And given their history, this is, if it was just, we're exes who still kind of get along. We're both at Coachella. And also, they could hook up with anybody they want. But also, they're both very famous. You got to be a little careful about who you're hooking up with, probably. So they've got they feel safe with each other.
Yeah, I'm sort of happy for this. In 2019, when they got together, they were a cute couple. They're very young. Both of them have sort of a Disney appeal. She's been in a remake of a Cinderella movie that my daughter really liked. He has a sort of kind of squeaky clean Bieber, is how I think of Shawn Mendes.
He's like Bieber without the hijinks.
Exactly. Fewer tattoos, but very boyish looking and sort of has that image. So I thought they were a cute couple. During the pandemic, they got really close because they were together in 2019 and they basically quarantined together, and they were one of those couples that you just thought like, oh, that's adorable. It's nice that they don't have to be lonely. When they emerged, things have been a little bit rockier for Shawn in terms of his mental health. He's spoken openly about taking a break and taking a step back from music and wanting to get himself right. I wonder now if some of that was due to the breakup maybe destabilizing him in some ways.
Possibly.
So, the work also and the stress of sort of being a young pop star, I'm sure that played a role, but he never seemed as happy post-relationship. It didn't look like we had a few sort of sightings of him with his chiropractor. There was some speculation that he was dating
People thought they were together. They were not.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah,
at the
that was
time.
kind of silly.
He seems happy. I mean, this does, I'm very cynical, but I think it can happen that you circle back to a person that you're very comfortable with, and, a lot of the negative memories fade and the good ones sort of bubble to the surface. And this seems like a good thing.
In the circumstances, like you said, they're young. So when they started dating in 2019, they were in their early 20s.
Yes.
Barely not far past 20. Now they're in their mid-20s. It's been 4 years. And that's not a long time, but those are some crucial years.
Right.
By like 25, 26, you know more what you want than when you do when you're 20, 21. And their relationship immediately was kind of thrown into this chaos beyond just them being, both incredibly famous and, there was so much scrutiny on the relationship. Then you go into quarantine.
Yes.
And they seem to survive through, quarantining together.
That is forging a relationship in the fires of like close proximity.
You're
because even a marriage was tested. We were just like, you don't want to be around a person 24/7. It's a lot. Yeah.
Everybody was navigating that. So when you're 22, 23 years old and suddenly you're living with this person, you don't have any other options, it's a lot. And they survived that mostly until it ended. And now maybe they're like, you know what? We did have something good.
You talk of them like they're mature mid-20s people, as if that's like a new phase of life. But
it kind of is.
Older.
It kind of is. Just think again, they're super famous. Their reality is very different than ours.
Yes.
But when you're 19, 20, 21, you're in college, you're starting to, you can legally drink. It's a whole new world to you. By 25, 26, you're starting to figure out your adult life.
I think that's right. And given their temperament, at least what we know publicly, neither of us know them personally.
No.
He could be a raging jerk, but it doesn't seem that way. He seems like a very nice guy.
Right.
She seems sort of lovely. It doesn't look like it's going to have the volatility of, and I've already compared him to Bieber, but there was a little ballad of, Justin and Selena back in the day where it seemed sort of restless and youthful and exuberant in a way that wasn't going to last. I remember Justin was getting in trouble at the time. He would go to Miami and there were DUIs and things of that nature. Selena seemed like she was pining for him. It didn't seem like it was necessarily like the healthiest relationship. Now he's, obviously happily married to Hailey Bieber. They're having a kid and so forth. Selena seems fine. She's in Only Murders in the Building. I think this relationship seems to me like it could last, go the distance, because they do seem to have learned some things. They're not on the street making out. I look at those.
Which they were when they started dating. Remember, we used to think like, oh, it was so very public. All the PDA with them. It's like, okay.
In the water, I remember they'd be on the beach and so forth. This seems sweeter. When I see Emily Ratajkowski making out with Harry Styles, I'm like, oh, that's passion. That's not necessarily love. When I see
hot people hooking up.
That's hot people hooking up.
This was hot people hooking up.
This is now, though, the holding hands video is sweet. It looks like a relationship that is sort of like calmed down and is sort of giving another shot. Now, I wanted to mention there are some song lyrics that she has that sort of alluded to the fact that she might want to get back with Shawn. I saw these earlier this morning, and something to the effect of like, if you come to Coachella, cool. It's written in a very like sort of young kid way, but it's like,
I want to hear you read this.
Yeah, and if you don't, it's all good. But if you do, it'll be all I think about, or something like that. So I imagine that Shawn caught wind of this and was like, oh, maybe she's feeling the same way I do, and the relationship has blossomed once again. Anyway, tell me about
these crazy kids make it work.
So do I. I feel like two older men being like, oh, good luck, you two.
Good luck, kids. We're rooting for you.
Tell me about Frank Ocean, because I need to be brought up to speed as to who he is really in music. I know who Frank Ocean is as a name, but how is he positioned, and is this a big deal, the news?
This is a big deal. So, I mean, he was one of the headliners at Coachella, like the headliner.
Yeah.
So that's how big he is. He's one of those artists. I tried to explain this to somebody else who was like, I don't know any of his songs. He doesn't have those like giant crossover pop songs you'd hear on the radio all the time if you're a pop fan or whatever.
Okay.
But he's one of those people that his songs have a ton of streams. His fan base is so dedicated. Well, is
he deeply like respected as an artist?
Yes, and he hasn't done anything in years.
Someone who will resonate with me. Who is he like in terms of like, he's not a big hit maker, but he's a very respected guy that I would care about? Sorry to make this about me.
I don't know if there's anybody respected that you care about.
Fair enough.
You like a lot of cheesy cornball music. But no, like the sort of a comparison you might get, like, Frank Ocean was part of Tyler, the Creator's Odd Future crew early on. In the same way, Tyler, the Creator doesn't crank out big radio-ready pop hits necessarily, but
people love
his albums are number one.
Yeah.
People are obsessed with him. His fan base is so hardcore. Frank Ocean's the same way. People have been waiting years and years for new music, so we're like, okay, he's back.
Okay.
And that performance at Coachella last weekend was kind of underwhelming. A lot of people very disappointed by that.
Yeah, although in our newsroom, Jacob was defending the performance and said...
Because people who love him are very passionate.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
But so now Frank Ocean has dropped out of the second weekend. I think probably not a huge surprise to anybody. He's citing a fractured ankle, which had happened before the first weekend, I believe, which was sort of the excuse for why, he couldn't really move around the stage and he was having trouble because of his ankle. Now he's not doing it.
Gotcha.
Coachella's not too upset because... the other big surprise of last weekend was Blink-182 doing their first big reunion show. So now they are going to take his place as the headliners.
Are they the sort of better vibe for Coachella because their music is sort of amped up and fun for the most part, and Frank Ocean is a little more artistic?
It was weird Frank Ocean as the headliner, not because of how big he is, because he's big enough to be the headliner.
Sure.
But yeah, it's sort of introspective, a little bit more mood music.
Right.
Which is... I love that music, but that's you want to end
Coachella.
Yeah. Blink-182 is so far the other way.
Gotcha.
But also they're huge, and like Frank Ocean, people have been waiting years for them to come back. So it's sort of that same energy of, it's this like amazing, huge, beloved artist that we've been waiting years and years to see, and now they're back.
Gotcha. So Blink-182, if you're into it, go to Coachella weekend too. Right. So we've got Shawn and Camila. We're wishing them the best of luck. And that's an opportune time to bring us to our sponsor.
Yes.
This episode's brought to you by BLUECHEW. Let's talk about sex. Guys, remember the days when you were always ready to go? Now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Listen up, BLUECHEW.com.
Yeah, so the thing that's unique about this, it's an online service. So if you're wondering, like, what is this? It's the same ingredients that are in Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, all the stuff that we know. But this is chewable.
Oh, that's pretty good. And the best part, it's all done online. No visits to doctor's offices, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. You just go online, order this stuff, and it comes in an envelope.
Right. And it could be the best sex you've ever had. which is a low bar for you, I know. But
thanks for that, Eric. And so does it work? Don't think you need it? Try it for free for a month and see. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
And Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code TMZ at checkout. Just pay $5 for shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code TMZ to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. Okay, with that said, let's move on to our more serious story of the day, but it's a very, very big deal. I've been talking about this a lot with people at the office. Johnathan Majors now has said that there's video proof that he didn't strike his ex-girlfriend because he says after this whole incident that she alleges I beat her in the back of a taxi, she went clubbing and seemed fine on video. Now, this is coming on the heels of prosecutors actually saying other alleged victims are coming forward and trying to corroborate the story that the ex-girlfriend is making by saying Johnathan Majors is a violent guy and here's his past history. So you have these two things going on. Let's just lay out what Johnathan Majors says happened, because she alleged that they were in this cab and they got into an argument over a text message that may have shown he was talking to another woman. She got upset, and they had some sort of combative interaction in the back of his car.
It has a lot of shades of Chris Brown and Rihanna.
It really did.
Because that was a battle over a phone, and yeah, it has a lot of that same kind of feel. But he's saying she alleged that he broke her finger.
And she has a laceration behind her ear, and she has a broken finger or an injured finger.
Right. So what his people are saying, the video proof is when she went clubbing, not just that she went out to a club after this happened, but that she's repeatedly through the night using her hand with the alleged broken finger and doesn't seem to be in any sort of pain or infirmed in any sort of way, that she pushes her hair back behind her ear without wincing or anything.
Is holding champagne glasses, holding a menu, and so forth. They're trying to paint a picture of this is not a person with an injured finger at this moment in time. And the timeline he's trying to paint is there was an altercation in the car. She was attacking me and trying to scratch me. He says he alerted the driver, who he believes will testify to his side of the story entirely, that he wanted to pull the car over so he could jump out, that he was under attack. She was scratching and out of control. He did get out of the car. He left. She continued in that ride to a club, and that's where they say there's all this surveillance footage showing a woman who doesn't have an injured finger and seems fine and is partying. There's also allegations that while at the club, she used his credit card to purchase an $800 bottle of champagne. They're sort of painting her as this angry woman who is lashing out at Johnathan Majors. Now, then things get a little odd because
he's saying that she came back to his place.
Yes.
He came home after her, several hours later, and found her, partially naked in his closet, unconscious. She had thrown up in his bed.
Yes.
And that he called 911 to help her.
That's right. He says at this point when he finds her, she does have these injuries, but given that gap of time after the incident in the car, they certainly weren't inflicted by me because you can see her clubbing after which I hadn't seen her. So he says he asked her, he called 911. What he was told was she took a bunch of sleeping pills and she was disoriented and never had the narrative that Johnathan Majors actually inflicted these injuries on her. What he says happened is the cops then come and there's body cam footage of the officer talking to the woman about this incident and her injuries. And according to Johnathan, it sounds like the officer is sort of coaching the woman to now allege that Johnathan inflicted these injuries, sort of putting his hand around his neck to sort of help her with this narrative of choking or strangulation going on during the fight that they had in the car. And it sounds like this is the first time this surfaces. And he says even when I called 911 to help her, this was never her narrative, and now this is something that was grafted on top of it. They want the charges thrown out. He's got a very aggressive lawyer, advocating on his behalf that this is an outright lie. Sometimes we'll see, lawyers try to contextualize what happened. They will say this was mutual combat. The woman hit me first, and any injuries she sustained were me restraining her.
Right.
You'll hear that narrative a lot. That is not the tactic that Johnathan Majors is taking. He's saying this is an outright lie by a jilted ex. She attacked me. I don't know how she suffered these injuries because when I left her, she was fine. She went clubbing. There's evidence of her clubbing without an injury. And then I came upon her and she had these injuries. And I was trying to help her by calling 911. So this is a full-throated defense.
Right. And it's interesting. We'll have to see with all the other accusers that are coming forward, exactly what those stories are and what his response to that is. But we've already seen such swift action taken against him publicly that his
career is in shambles.
Management PR firms dropped him. The Texas Rangers dropped him from a spot. He's lost movie roles already. He was playing Otis Redding in a biopic.
He is the villain of Marvel.
Yeah,
right now.
The whole
of this entire phase.
The next 3 or 4 years of Marvel are built around his character. He's the Thanos character basically for the next couple of years.
It is as if Josh Brolin had this happen when Iron Man 1 came out.
Right.
Which was
no, the first Avengers.
When the first Avengers, I'm sorry, when the first Avengers came out and they positioned Thanos for all of those movies, that entire phase of the project, it would be as if he was facing these allegations. It's a big deal.
Which it's interesting you say that because you remember back in the day, Josh Brolin and Diane Lane, there were allegations about a very violent nature to their relationship, and that was years before he played Thanos.
Right.
But it didn't really affect him. So I've seen a lot of people saying why are they going so hard after Johnathan Majors when so many other people have either gotten a pass or just let's wait and see, which seems to be what Marvel specifically is doing so far. They haven't announced that they've dropped him, or they said there's not even a conversation about it yet. But they've got to have those conversations soon because unless he somehow gets vindicated in all this.
Yeah, I mean, I have a theory about what's going on and why it's being played this way. One, we're in a very sort of different stage in Hollywood history than we used to be. I mean, there were actors who had problematic domestic violence allegations who acted in the industry. You sort of knew that they had these rumors or even, court cases against them, and they
facts.
They were still able to have a career. Mickey Rourke is one of them who pops into my mind. He was a guy who was sort of on the fringes, but he was an actor and a sort of working actor for a long time with lots of allegations about him. Johnathan Majors is on the precipice of becoming sort of the next big thing. I mean, he's such a great actor. I saw him in Creed. I mean, he could be Denzel big. He's really a very, very good actor. But he's not yet a household name. And I think there's an opportunity
now. Well, he is now.
He's a household name for the wrong reasons. But I think when the management runs from someone like this, it's we don't have to necessarily anoint him yet. He's ready to be the big, huge name star, top billing guy. But if he's problematic, we got to run now. And it sounds like a lot of them are fleeing, and I'm not sure that's fair. And he's certainly saying this is an outright lie and it shouldn't destroy my career. But the stink of the allegations of this nature, even just the allegations, unfounded in this era, they stick to you. They stick to you very differently.
Some people are wondering, the way that so many of these big firms have so quickly fled from him, all these endorsement deals, all these things. The Army has dropped him as a spokesperson. Is it just a knee-jerk reaction in the moment we're in right now, or people are saying, do they know things we don't know?
That's what I'm wondering, because the swiftness with which they pulled everything, and he's got big movies coming out. He was just in Creed 3. He's got a big movie in Sundance, I believe, or some festival circuit movies. So I don't know. Everyone is sort of fleeing. This sounds to me like he is absolutely professing his innocence, and he doesn't want to have any of this follow him around. I don't know if you can unring that bell completely. But it's an interesting development, and we'll have to see where it goes, because the prosecutors still seem like they're moving forward with this case. They believe they have enough to sort of carry it through. His lawyer doesn't look like they're backing down. I don't necessarily see a plea deal, because I don't think that would be helpful for him. I think he needs to absolutely have exoneration.
He does.
And it doesn't sound like the prosecutor is going to let it just be dismissed entirely.
It's just interesting. If this does ultimately wind up completely sinking his career, and that's the end of it, I can't think of anybody, certainly in recent memory, who so quickly blew up. He had Lovecraft Country 2 or 3 years ago, and it's oh, this guy's really good.
Yes.
And then suddenly he's in everything, and huge blockbusters, and Oscar movies are on the way, and then it just stops overnight.
I was racking my brain for an analogy. I don't really have it. I mean, I guess, I'm trying to think of anyone who has come through this and been completely okay. Everyone has Mike Tyson, it's chased him for years, his rape conviction. Kobe Bryant had the
Chris Brown still gets brought up a lot.
Case, and then I think he's beloved now. Chris Brown, it's still brought up every time you talk about him. Johnny Depp exonerated himself in this trial. If you ask a lot of people, he was proven in his mind.
But some people will never forgive him.
But some people will think of him as an abuser, regardless of how that case came out. I think Johnathan Majors, given the high-profile nature of this, will have to deal with this element of his reputation forever. For better or worse, unfair or not, it's there. That's the way the world works now. So we'll continue to follow it, and that'll do it for us today. See you next time.